This review of Doctor Who, The Fifth Doctor Adventures, Hooklight Volume 2 contains discussion of plot points and spoilers which some viewers may wish to avoid. You have been warned. Enjoy. Well, hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review, we are continuing our adventures with the Fifth Doctor, Nyssa, Adric and Tegan in the second volume of the Tim Foley epic that is Hooklight. If you haven't checked out my previous review of Volume 1, I highly recommend doing so, as this is a 12-part story. It continues on directly from the previous box set, and if you are interested by this release, then you really need to have listened to Volume 1 in order to understand this story. And as mentioned at the top of this review, this video does contain spoilers, as well as a cover art which I highly recommend avoiding if you haven't listened to part 1 as of yet. This release is available on physical CD and download, but the CD is limited to 1,000 units, and once it's sold out, it is sold out for good. It also features a lovely cover art. There's 2 different versions, so once again, a massive credit to Rafe Wallbank for making this box set look beautiful. So let's delve right back into the adventure of Hooklight with Part 7. In case Volume 1 didn't already get the point across, this series is quite the grand feat. It's such an achievement by Tim Foley. I was quite thrilled to hear at the very beginning of Volume 2, it starts with a previously in Doctor Who Hooklight segment narrated by Sarah Sutton. It's a lovely montage, and instantly it prepares the listener and sets up the series to be something more adventurous than we ever really got on screen. It was also a really helpful reminder. It's something I wish connected Big Finish series did a little bit more often to remind the listener of the plot arcs. Excitingly, as revealed by the cover art for this release, we also have the return of Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor, which is one of the many ways that this series sets out to impress, but this is a multi-Doctor story with a difference. It's not a novelty, it's used incredibly effectively for narrative purposes, and that's all I will say. Whilst there are spoilers within this review, I am going to try and keep the exact plot points and revelations as unknown as possible. But if you want a somewhat spoiler-free review, it's a really bloody good box set. Go and buy it. So moving on, Part 1 sustains the energy of Part 6, the concluding part of the previous volume, giving Paul some lovely string-pulling lines and an introductory monologue. His role within the story is oddly sinister, I found, overseeing the events, but it's a great use of the audio format and it feels quite special. McGann is that very emotional Doctor. He's under strain because of the Time War, and here he is crossing his own personal timeline, interacting briefly with Tegan, Adric and Nyssa, but distantly as well. This is a Doctor which knows what's coming within the Doctor's timeline for this particular team, and the foreshadowing assists in telling the story of Hooklight, but also bringing more substance to the early Fifth Doctor era as a whole. And again, I love that's what Big Finish do. They are very good at foreshadowing, filling in the cracks and smoothing things over a little bit. It has more thought and preparation than we ever really got within Doctor Who in the classic series. The scenes with McGann towards the end of this epic as well are especially lovely with a certain character. It nicely wraps up his involvement for this series, but also leaves a few questions for the future as well, which who knows when Big Finish may pick that up. So plot-wise, Davlin Crooks is still assisting Adric, and Nyssa is taking centre stage as the embodiment of Hooklight itself, who also goes by the name of Neura. Echoing the remarks made within Volume 1, there is a capability and strength from all of the companions within this series, which Tim Foley really embraces. The companions leap off the page, they are great to listen to, all of them have brilliant performances throughout. I think Adric has a little bit less to do in the second volume, certainly in the middle, but I still appreciated Matthew Waterhouse's performance. He's hands-on and he's great in the action sequences. He learns, adapts and finds a confidence that he didn't really have as much on screen. And I also like the way that Adric riffs with Davlin Crooks quite a lot. Together they have this very adventurous, ambitious energy, which is also tested within the concluding parts. Kieran Bew brings a rather doctorly energy within Davlin, Davlin. He's a rather fun character, and he's nice to have around when the Doctor isn't present. He's a rather tricky tutor for Adric, but both characters really excel together, and I enjoy listening to the journey that Davlin goes on across the 2 volumes. Again, he's a really listenable character, if that makes sense. I can imagine him. He is rather bold, he has lots of confidence, and he loves himself quite a lot, let's face it. Now, Part 8 is a little bit different to the rest of this series. Tegan returns, having been previously absent within Part 7, having mysteriously landed somewhere new entirely after the events of Volume 1. She's in this snowy landscape on the planet of Nib, where she meets Oscar and his Wistwolf pet, Bella. Together, they embark upon this mission to track down the Bayon, before heading to the local spaceport, which is quite far away, so Tegan can unite once more with her friends, because she's basically been cut off from everyone, and this civilization is not exactly the most developed. Now, this part is such a lovely break away from the time-hopping action. It's a really intimate character piece. I love how Oscar and Tegan become closer throughout the duration, sharing stories and opening up. I believe their relationship, and it's a lovely, small, reflective story for Tegan, whilst also working at the same time as additional effective world building for this particular area of space that we got a lot of within Volume 1. For those who have experienced the self-contained, heartfelt Tim Foley Torchwood scripts, this reminds me of that. It may be small, it's only like half an hour long, but it is a really powerful story. Every scene has relevance, there is human impact, and a lot of vulnerability in there as well. This part also continues to give the series overall quite the scope, as if Tim Foley is carving out his very own era for the 5th Doctor. A grand epic season worth of storytelling and events, and I'm absolutely sold by it. Oscar is a brave, kind-hearted individual, and together he and Tegan journey across the landscape, and it actually made me quite emotional at points. The things Oscar does to help Tegan is just so sweet. This part may seem detached from the rest of the story, but I love how it influences Tegan and the story's conclusion, but also perhaps as well the era moving forward. It leaves things within Tegan's mind for her to think about. Come Part 9 and 10, we return to a slightly familiar format to that of Volume 1. It's that blend of fantasy, magic and sci-fi, with Merla and the Dawn Brides, combined with space travel and starships. I continue to be incredibly impressed by the imagination of this story. I close my eyes whilst listening along, and I could picture the ships, the planets, the stars, and when accompanied by the music, it has this impressive, limitless nature. I think the length of this story can be quite a challenge probably for some listeners, but it also has the strength of having time to fully explore its concepts and its ideas, more than enough time. It allows for moments to dwell on characters and the dynamics and the emotions that they are feeling. But I can also imagine this story as a concept being quite the drag if you aren't confident or intrigued by the idea as a listener. So if you do listen to Volume 1 and really can't get into it, then if you're really committed, yes, you could listen to Volume 2 as well, but maybe it's not a story for you. It will not be for everyone due to its length. It's basically like the Daleks' Master Plan, but a lot better. I feel like I'm being really harsh to the Daleks' Master Plan there. I don't mind that story, I just find it a bit boring. This one is not boring at all. The fantastical way that this story comes across to me, that is the strength of the non-visual format. It's for those who have fun imagining the landscape and appreciate the ambition, rather than perhaps the less experienced audio newcomer, where the smaller aspects of the narrative may go completely over their heads. And it goes without saying, you can't really listen to Volume 2 if you haven't listened to Volume 1. It's like picking up a book halfway through and expecting to understand it. I enjoy hearing how the events and the timelines converge. I think it's a really rewarding listen, getting answers and understanding the setup after the events have actually happened. How very Doctor Who. But that's the thing, it's a very comprehensive plot, and one I recommend listening to shortly after Volume 1, so the plot threads are in your mind, or alternatively, take actual notes, like how I did. Now, I did compliment Howard Carter in Volume 1's review. His music is very influential to the feel of this story. He embraces the sci-fi and the magic. I particularly love the music that resembles the Hooklight. It feels rather scary and eerie. In the previous review, I compared it to Doctor Who does Interstellar, and I echo that sentiment here. It feels very powerful, it's incredibly consistent and beautiful, and the music nicely accompanies the visuals within my mind whilst listening along. It gives the story an identity, and again, due to it being 12 parts long, it feels like its own season of Doctor Who. Interestingly, part 10 features quite a lot of spaceship travel, and I find it funny thinking just how flat this episode would have probably been if it was on our TV screens, but when twinned with that strong dialogue and character moments, it gives us heartfelt emotion and depth that classic Doctor Who on TV lacked quite a lot. There is a very touching moment with Kessica and the Doctor, which beautifully links back to the very opening episodes of this series, and there is a quote that I'm going to mention completely out of context that the Fifth Doctor says, "Then cry and I will cry with you." I think it's one of my favourite things that I've ever heard the Fifth Doctor say. Celia Imrie's performance as Kessica Miles certainly hits a note. She doesn't appear as much as I thought she would within Volume 2, but I still felt invested in the character, and there are multiple things I can't really touch upon with her without spoiling the series. Again, we go on a journey with her which touches on subjects that I can't imagine classic Who ever really doing justice on TV. There's an element of theatre and impact which is always present within Tim Foley's writing, which creates a depth to the story emotionally, which some may not associate with sci-fi generally. Again, just like Foley's Torchwood work, it hits a particular note, which then leaves an impression on me, certainly, as a listener. One of my initial fears with a 12-part story is that by the end, I may completely lose the threads and not appreciate the whole tale. But I did. Despite its duration, the piece effectively concludes wrapping up all of its components in a comprehensible manner, and leaving elements as well to possibly return to in the future. The adventure has left its mark on the TARDIS team, but also me as a listener, and despite me at first being a little bit uncertain by how the box set ended, the story had enough time to hint at the repercussions and explore them through a number of scenes. Despite David Richardson ending his long time as the series' range producer, I hope that the next time we hear from the season 19 team, there is at least one story which gives reference to the events of this series, a little echo of acknowledgement perhaps. And to reiterate a feeling which I felt a number of years ago, which I keep coming back to within these reviews, I never really felt like I connected to the Fifth Doctor. I didn't really appreciate him as an incarnation. But over the last few years, this range, and Tim Foley's scripts especially, have dramatically changed that for me. So there we go. Hooklight is probably one of the biggest achievements from the classic Doctor Who range at Big Finish in quite a number of years. 12 whole parts spanning 2 volumes of completely new, bold storytelling, which builds an entirely new area of space, its belief structure, society, and many worlds within it. Only the TARDIS team are pre-established, and yet as a listener I found myself both believing and being captivated by the journey. The audio form should not be underestimated for its capability to tell grand science fiction stories. The sound design feels immense and magical, each character had a time to shine, and it was a pleasure to be taken on that journey. The arguably dated elements of classic Doctor Who have been taken, and a story has been told which wouldn't look out of place within Doctor Who or science fiction generally today, developing its companions, challenging the Doctor, whilst crossing genres of time travel, fantasy, myth, legend, and the great unknown. The story has a confidence and a runtime which allows sufficient space for a comprehensive tale to be told, including the dramatic moments, the threat, but also those smaller scale character discussions and dynamics which make the story overall feel incredibly real. Generally, committing to 2 box sets of new material which don't feature your regular foes may seem quite daunting, but if you enjoy this TARDIS team or Tim Foley's writing and want to experience a masterclass in audio drama storytelling, Hooklight is a must. Well done to all involved, from cast, post-production, and Big Finish themselves, for allowing basically an entire Doctor's range for 1 year to be consumed by one writer's imagination. It was absolutely worth it. So thank you very much for watching this review of Doctor Who, The Fifth Doctor Adventures Hooklight. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular reviews and reaction to the latest Big Finish audio drama releases. Have a nice day, I shall see you all next time.